Welcome, everyone, to episode 25, a huge milestone for me. Yay.
Congrats.
Podcasters usually don't make it to, I think, like 4 episodes. So I am very proud of us here at the Bunker Talk. I have an incredible guest who not only is a friend, but also, even though we don't see each other enough and we're in the same city, we spent a lot of time together, and he's really made an impact in me and a lot of people in the community. So his name is Mariano Demarin. Thank you so much, Mariano, for being here. Tell everybody about yourself, who you are, what you do, all that good stuff.
Congrats.
Thank 25 you. I'm really happy it's with you. I really am.
Not surprised by that. So I professionally, I spent 20 some odd years in residential lending, and I helped run the U.S. for a few companies. And sometime around 2015-ish, I think I was in Chicago flying home, and I looked at my watch, and it was noon. And by the time I looked down again, it was like 12:02, and I knew it was time. So I landed in Miami. I called my boss, and I'm like, "Hey, man, I know you're not expecting this, but I'm done. Like, I'm not doing this anymore." And it wasn't a lot. It was 3-4 days a month. But after 20 years, I was over. Second call is my wife. Like, "Hey, I just quit my job."
Fun.
Yeah.
Shouldn't that have been first?
But so I stayed there for transition period. Of course, I didn't leave him hanging. 2-3 months until he found my replacement at the time. And then I had to figure out what I was going to do. I didn't necessarily have a plan at that point. I just knew I was going to do something. And I had a buddy who had an Allstate office. I visit large one. So I visited him. I'm like, "Hey, man, show me." And he did. And I was like, "Okay, it's great, but probably not for me, especially coming out of the corporal. I didn't want to do that." And then there's the in-between markets that, they kind of hold you captive, but you're not captive. And they sent me their contract, and I read it. And once again, I was like, no, so I got my license. And I started writing homeowners business simply because of my relationships in residential lending. Leads
makes sense.
Were easy and simple. People trusted me. And I remember my my first lead came in, and I didn't know about Raiders at the time, because literally I was starting from scratch. And it took me like 6 hours to quote
all the carriers.
Yeah, like 15, 20 carriers. And I was like, there's no way that this is the way this works.
That's so funny, because that happened to us, because we were captive. We did go the captive route, and then when we went independent, we were just like, "God, this is so hard." Doing it each one,
So anyway, needless to say, I figured out they were Raiders. But for about 4 or 5 months, me and my buddy Will, who does all our commercial lines, who I've known since we were 15, friends from high school, hired our first staff. It was about 6-7 people, and very, very knowledgeable, like old school insurance folks. And I didn't follow my normal hiring practice simply because I had so many knowledge gaps.
Right.
Not any people that know what I didn't know. And I'm always a fan of hiring people that are smarter than me anyway. So it kind of worked, and then it really didn't work from a cultural standpoint, from a vibe standpoint, from a happiness standpoint, things that are important to me and what I think in order to create a successful business. So we kind of parted ways with that group, and then everyone we've hired since has been with us, 8 years, Juan, 8 years, Tyler, 7 years, Ioani, and the list goes on and on. So everyone that we've found since that time is still with us, and we've built an amazing business from scratch. And then a couple of years ago, partnered with the Liberty Company, and to expand our horizons and markets to the whole U.S., not just Florida. But it's been a great run. It's a great business, and I'm having fun, man.
That's awesome. That's it's such a great story to hear. First of all, immediately what caught my eye was that you hire where you lack.
Yeah, of course.
Let's talk about that, because there's a lot of people. So I always tell everyone, I started this not for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons to kind of take back some of my time. I was doing a lot of networking, not getting anywhere, and I was exhausted personally. I was just drained. And I was like, well, I could add value to my community of business owners anywhere, right? Just interviewing people that have made it, so that you guys can share stuff and I absorb it, right? Like today when I was talking to the team here, I was like, Sophia had asked me, "Oh, who are you going to have on the podcast?" And I told her, I was all excited. I was like, "Oh, it's my friend Mariano and all this." And I was like, honestly, I want to talk to him about these 2 things, because I lack in those 2 things, right? So it's a little selfish, but I have some fun and I make some content while I do it, right? Man. But hiring is so hard. Yeah. It's so challenging. How do people that have never done it, where do they start? How do they do it? Right.
I can tell you through trial and error of having done, 50,000, 80,000 interviews over the many, many years that I've been doing this kind of stuff. So And my answers, as much as possible, which is what I try to practice, I try to keep things as simple as possible. The less stuff I have cluttering my mind, the easier it is for me to be successful. Right. So when it comes to hiring and specifically hiring for your needs, the first step is you need to spend a little time with yourself. Mm-hmm. And that means, okay, you know what? Let's start with personality traits. So what kind of personality traits do I like being around? And what kind of personality traits? I don't like you now, and God knows in 3 months I'm really not going to like you. You need to know that. You need to have a little self-awareness, a little time with yourself, and a pen and a pen. So, you know, I like people that are X, Y, Z, B, blah, blah, and I really, really just don't mesh with this. Mm-hmm. Great. Now that you understand that, the second part is, okay, the role that I'm hiring for. Mm-hmm. What does it require?
Already so different than most people, right? Because usually it's the role. People start with the role. I need to fill this spot, right? It's not who can I get along with? Who do I want to spend time with?
Correct. You know, to me, and once again, there's a million ways to slice it. I'm telling you my recipe and how I've been able to have a relatively successful career all these years is you surround yourself with people you enjoy being around. Mm-hmm. You know what? And the reason for this, because there's a method to the madness, is when, you know, everyone's like, oh, I'm a great manager, I'm a super great motivator. When things are amazing, it's easy. I could put an 8-year-old to manage because there is no managing to be done.
Right.
It's when all hell breaks loose, when everything is terrible, when there's nothing going right. If you are surrounded with a group of people that, for the most part, you kind of see the world the same way, kind of like me and you, we've clicked since day one. Since day one. You surround yourself with people like that, not only do you get through the tough times quicker, but you eventually thrive because you all kind of, you know, hey man, all right, great, whatever it is, because there's that commonality. Right. As opposed to, getting back to your question, if I'm hiring for a role and I find some cat that is unbelievably qualified for X, yet the 4 things that I like, it's like, no. And now all hell breaks loose. Me and him are going to hate each other. Me and her are going to hate each other. We're not going to get along. Right. We're not going to get through it. As a matter of fact, we're going to exacerbate the problem, make it worse. Mm-hmm. So, yes, you know, first figure out who you like. Mm-hmm. You know, what really excites you about people. Mm. Then the role, and then those are your interview questions. You know, so for example, I like people that are competitive. You know, I played sports my whole life. I still play sports. And to me, and in sales in particular, you need to have an ounce of competitiveness. I want to be number one. I want to be the best. So when you're interviewing someone and you kind of find, hey man, are you competitive or not? And they're like, well, you know what? Yeah. You know,
one of the questions, right? I've heard that to ask, like, if they played any sort of sports, like team sports and things like that. Because I never played any team sports, and I wouldn't say that I'm not naturally competitive. I'm not a sore loser, but I wouldn't say like I have to be number one. I could use to be a little more aggressive, honestly, in my sales. I feel like I'm more focused on like educating them, whether they go with me or not, which I mean, I guess is good, but also I need to grow my business. Yeah. So I am lacking in that piece, but I've always heard that about people that play sports usually end up great in sales because they can also play in a team environment. They're used to winning together. Yes. They collaborate. Yes. Yeah.
They're used to dealing with adversity,
right?
Which is when you lose,
right,
and you get crushed,
you get back up.
You know, I remember, and this is now old man stuff, so I apologize. But when I was a kid, you know, I think I was 11 years old, and I tried out for a travel baseball team, and I didn't make it. And I went home and I cried for a week. I didn't get a medal. 8th place, didn't get a medal. I went home and I cried for a week. And I worked my tail off. And the next year, I made the travel team. The next year, I won the MVP of the travel team. Yeah. Why? Because I didn't like that feeling, man. And like I said, this is way off. Yeah, but it's way off on a tangent.
It's not. It applies. It applies because also at that young age, you already had these factors that make you successful in business. Yeah. Because I mean, more days than not, we constantly are getting knocked down.
Yes.
So it's like, you know, every morning I wake up and I'm just like, well, it's another 24 hours, right? Whatever happened yesterday. It's another day. It's another opportunity to just prove that I can do it.
It's interesting you mentioned, you know, that we get knocked down a lot. And that's also one of the things that I focus on when I do sales training with my group. So you don't start with the meal, meaning I don't train, and I don't ask my folks to come in every day and say, I need to sell a policy today. Because then you're going to do a lot of losing. And losing doesn't feel good. And what I know to be a fact is, keeping things simple, if you do a lot of losing and you're unhappy, you're probably going to be unmotivated. And if you're unhappy, unmotivated, the client gets a terrible experience. If you do a little more winning than losing, you're going to be happy and motivated. And a happy, motivated employee, gives the client a great experience. So when it comes to specifically, goals and the daily goals and what you come into, I always train on focusing on the little more, the Scooby snacks we call them, things that are wins. For example, great conversations. You can have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 great conversations a day, and those are all wins. And you're never going to get a policy if you don't have a great conversation. Mm-hmm. That's the first step. I say, do you guys connect? Were you able, and the way we, in my office and in my career, the way I've defined what's a great conversation is, were you able to extract something personal from them? And then did you share something personal? Mm-hmm. So it's not, hey, tell me about your business. How many employees? Right. What's your revenue? What? No, It's getting a chance for them to say, oh my God, I'm going on a cruise and I'm going with my family and whatever. And you're like, oh my God, I hate cruising. I get nauseous and I throw up.
Right.
But now you're no longer Ciara, the salesperson on the phone trying to sell you insurance. No, you're Ciara, the human being. Mm-hmm. So now you've had a good conversation. And you know what that does to you and to every salesperson? You feel good.
Right.
I got a bunch of wins. Check, 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 check. Then you move on to, B, C, and all the other steps that eventually get you a policy. And it builds confidence, right? And it builds results. And it builds happy people. And, getting back to what you asked originally about hiring, I like to be around happy people, man.
Honestly, dude, I just might sell it all and go work for you. I mean, cut the show. Like, I mean, I'm ready. Sign me up.
That's where it's at. Happy people around other happy people find success.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's fundamental.
And so when people are starting, right? Mm-hmm. And you're opening a business, you're wearing all the hats, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And hiring, let's say you failed a couple times with the hiring, right? What advice do you have for that? And what about if they make a wrong hire? Like, are you the type that hires slow, fires fast?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about the firing.
So firing is tough. I remember
it's so tough.
When I was 26, first time I had to fire someone, and I cried.
I cried too.
I sat in my car in the garage before I went up there, and I cried because, once again, getting back to my philosophy, I had a relationship with this person. I cared about them, and they knew I cared about them.
That's tough.
But part about the upside, as far as I'm concerned, of managing in a caring manner is when I did go up and say, hey, man, here's what's up. There was no anger. There was no resentment because he knew, he knew sincerely I cared about him. And I did everything in my power. Right. At that point, it's on them. And there's personal responsibility. So anyway, I cried. It was terrible. So getting rid of someone is very, very difficult if 3 things haven't happened. Number 1, did I give this employee all the training to be successful? If the answer to that question is no, then you need to point the finger at yourself, not at the employee. Great. I did do that. Check. Number 2, do they have the tools to be successful? So I can't hire a carpenter and not give him a hammer and a saw and say, hey, man, go deal with that wood. If the answer, once again, is no, finger comes back to me. I can't fire that employee. I got to fire myself, if anything, right? I have done that. Check. Number 3, attitude. And that's my non-negotiable. Maybe I should have started with that. Yeah. That's my if your attitude stinks, I don't care if I've done this or if I haven't done this. That for me, that's a non-starter. So that's probably number 1, the other one, 2 or 3. But if your attitude is great, I've given you all the training and everything I have, and you have the tools to be successful, and you're not, it's time for me to shake your hand and give you a hug and set you free to go be successful, because there's nobody that wakes up and is like, I can't wait to go suck today.
Right.
I can't wait to go fail. Woo! Not one person on this planet. Meaning, you're setting them free. And if you're honest with them and it comes from a place of caring and a place of love, it's like, listen, we've done this, we've done like everything, and you're really still not good at this.
Maybe it's just not for you.
That's it. Yeah. So, slow to hire, very, very quick to fire, because if not, you're spinning your wheels. And ultimately, it impacts the most important person in our type of businesses, which is you. Mm-hmm. And then you're not happy. And if you're not happy, you're not the best version of yourself for your people. And that's unfair to them.
That's it's so true when that part comes on the especially in the team, when you fostered such a good team and there's a bad apple, right? It spreads.
Oh, immediately.
Quickly.
Like a
so
cancer.
You have to do it
immediately.
Fast.
Immediately. There's no questions asked. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's immediate. And the feedback is immediate as well.
Right, from the team.
From everybody.
When you interview people, do you have team interviews?
I do. So our interviewing process, and once again, it's about creating a vibe and a culture where everyone cares and everyone is bought in, right? So I interview the person initially, and in my initial interview, as mentioned earlier, for my characteristics or some things that I like about people, if they happen to pass that, and I think, okay, there's a chance, I send them home. I say, I need you to call me back in 24 hours and let me know if you're still interested. And that way I'm gauging, hey man, maybe what I told them, maybe maybe they don't like me. That's fine.
Right.
They call me back. Yeah, man, I dig it. Let's go. I bring them in, and then they sit with every employee in my office for 15 to 20 minutes, one at a time. And my employees are already trained on how to do this. And I tell the candidate, listen, this is for you. It's not for us. And sincerely it is, because once again, I explain this to them. If you sit with us and you don't like anyone, you're not going to like working here, man.
Right.
And I want you to ask everyone in my office, hey, what stinks about working here? What do you not like? What's the toughest? Ask them all the tough questions. There's nothing to hide. There's no stone. Unturn everything. And they do that. And my people ask them. We go around, send them home. And then we have a debrief as a team, which is, all right, let's kind of discuss this. Let's get the finer points. I mean, needless to say, ultimate answer is always going to be on the business owner, because you're the one that is in charge and there's a responsibility there. But if it's relatively clear that there's someone that just doesn't pass the mustard with the group, I don't care how much I like them. I'm not hiring them. For what?
Especially because you're not in the trenches with them every day. They would be.
Yeah, man.
Right.
And it might ruin the most important part of the way that we and I define success, which is the culture and the vibe. Once again, happy people stand a chance to be successful. Give the client a great experience. All roads lead to this, because what I know to be a fact, unhappy people rarely are successful and always give the client a terrible experience. I know that to be for sure. I don't want any piece of that. Happiness is the key. Joy, together, us. And they know that I care. You can't fake caring.
Right. No,
not consistent. You can't.
No, not for not. You would be called out.
They would
quickly.
Know.
Of
they
course.
would know. And listen, employees and especially back in my corporate days where I sat in on a gazillion C-level meetings and they would give us studies and informations and data about why employees leave, why they stay. And if you ask someone on the street, like, hey, why does an employee stay? Money, number one. No, money's number 7. Consistently, 6 and 7. 1 through 5 is all about vibe. Are they included? Do they feel a part of something? Do they feel an opportunity? Are they appreciated? All the things that, once again, I like. I like when I'm appreciated. I like when someone calls me and says, hey, man, that's a damn good job.
Yeah.
I like it when I'm not taken for granted. I mean, once again, I'm hoping obvious stuff, right? But you never know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not, because how many people how many people struggle with hiring, right? And I think that I think that it's just people a lot. Like, for example, I always use the pizza restaurant owner, right? Like, the guy or the lady gets into business to make pizza because they love pizza. They don't know how to be a business owner. They don't know how to do this, how to hire, how to build a culture, how to interview, how to fire. They don't know any of that stuff. So it's like people have a dream to own a business, right? In theory, but the day-to-day is, there's a clip on socials that for like the last 10 days, I've watched it every single day. And I actually sent it to Steven, who's also a scratch agent in New York. And it's Elon Musk talking about how difficult it is to own a business, right? And people think it's easy and it's all this. And he's like, honestly, it's like staring into the abyss, because it could end whenever, right? You just don't know. Something can happen while eating glass, and you're just constantly eating glass. And it's because as the business owner, you're fed the bad, right? There's not a lot of filters in between you and the bad, because if it's good, you don't know about it because you don't need to. If it's good and it's working, great. You know about it at a high level. So it's like, that stuff isn't taught. Nobody teaches people that have a passion about a product, their food, anything, how to do this stuff. And so that's kind of, again, one of the reasons why I did this, because I feel like I can use it. So I'm sure a lot of people can use it. So all of this has been so good. Talk to me about sales culture. How do you I feel like one of the hardest things, even for me personally, is that, right? Like, I want people to want to work here too, but also, holding them accountable to our sales goals, all of that. How do you keep the healthy vibe and culture with the job aspect of it, of like the healthy sales stuff?
Yeah. And that's one that, through making many, many errors over the years. And interestingly enough, in my case, I've had initially early on, some really terrible bosses that I was like, okay, you know what?
Don't want to be that.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. And then I've had some unbelievably dynamic, caring, intelligent. I remember early in my career, you know what, and I'll obviously get into the sales culture thing, but early in my career, I was working for a company, and I'm not sure what position I had at that point. I was working my way up. No one that anyone should have known, I guess, in a corporation. And I go to one of our functions, and the guy that was the CEO at the time, who I'd had one conversation with initially, and he kind of asked me about my family, my kids, and I came back, and he's like, "Hey, Mariano," he's like, "How's so and so?" And like he remembered everything about me, and he made me feel, so special. There's no other way to describe it. I felt so special. He made me feel so special and so important and so cared about that immediately I was like, all right, note to self, you know what, write this down, put it in your back pocket. This needs to be a part of who you are as a leader, is people need to feel you care about them. And ever since that, I do. And I incorporate that. And that leads into a sales culture, by the way. So I think our job as leaders in a sales organization, and I can't tell you how shocked I am when I see the opposite of this. When I see managers that are like, I like it when they sweat a little bit, and I like it when if they happen to be, not making enough money and they're struggling and I'm like, yeah, because I know I'm going to get and I'm thinking like, nah, dude, like you're so far off. You're going to get compliance. You're not going to get commitment.
Right.
So the beginning of a healthy sales culture.
Oh, that's so good.
Of a success.
The compliance. I've never heard of that. The compliance versus the commitment. That is so. It's people just doing what is expected because they have to, but they could do so much more if they were just committed.
Correct. And
so
that
good.
starts with you as a leader. You know what is?
I gotta write that down.
The hammer, the you better, the standing over them, the managing the minute details of their day because you don't trust them or for whatever reason. That's all commitment based. Compliance based. You need to edit that out. Edit, pause. That's compliance. And compliance will get you exactly that. Short-term results, bitterness, unhappy people. Period, end of story. The opposite of that is when you take an interest in their success. And that's where I think a healthy sales culture begins. We just say understanding, and it, coincidentally enough, we happen to be working on this with my team right now as we speak, which is, and it's the way we've described it is kind of under the table, over the table, your why, your motivation, if you will. So what we found, and I asked them, like, listen, I need you guys to be vulnerable with yourselves. I need you guys to really dig in and have a moment of self-awareness when you walk in at the beginning of every month and you're like, okay, I want to do X. Is your motivation to do X below the table? Examples of which is, okay, let me calculate the minimum I need to make in order just to break even and not have any bills crush me. Christ, no, you're that doesn't feel, everything centers around feeling good. That does not feel good. What is the minimum I got to do to keep my job under the table? What is, where am I at where I can see where the average person is doing and I can be right there under the table? And a lot of people subconsciously, and I had a couple of our team where they were like, wow, I'm shocked. Like I wasn't even aware of the fact that I was using, under the table motivation as opposed to on top of the table. And there's a million of these. Mine has always been, I just like being number one, honestly, because I know if I am number one, what my career has shown me is the promotions, they come. The recognition, it comes. The pat on the back, it comes. The appreciation, it comes. The financial rewards, it comes. And all those things lead to the most important thing in life, which is I get freedom with my time. Because people trust me. They know that, hey, if they say, Mariano, I need you to do X, they can hang up the phone. X is done. But part of that is my motivation. I like being number one. When I see a ranking and I'm not number one, I want to be number one. So, but everyone's got their own. So we're working on that right now. So part of building, I think, a healthy sales culture is you got to get to know your people. And you got to help them understand, what are they using as their why? Why do they want to come in and achieve X, whatever that goal is that you work out together in conjunction? I don't want to say never, because there's a million ways to be successful. I don't recommend dictating goals to people. I recommend having a conversation, but I have found in my experience that most salespeople will operate in what's called, I call it the ego cocoon, which is maybe they'll give a goal that's like kind of on the edge of that cocoon, but always within an area where they can't fail. Why? Because failing feels terrible. You want to say something?
It's comfortable.
Exactly.
Right. People want comfort. Right.
It's comfortable. So they know in that ego cocoon, maybe they reach it, maybe they don't, but it's safe. It's comfortable. There's no like feelings of like, oh, your job as a leader is to get them out of that ego cocoon and not to give them something that's unattainable.
Sure.
Hey,
you don't want to crush them.
Stand on the roof and fly.
Right.
They don't have wings.
Right.
But if they're saying 4, am I going to talk about 6 with them? Absolutely. All day, every day. Because that is your job, is to help them. And then what happens inevitably 100% of the time, if you have a healthy culture, if you care about your people, and once again, all the stuff that we can discuss as well, they'll achieve it.
And then they get addicted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're happy. And they're like, oh my God, look at what I just did. And ultimately it's because of them. It's not because of you. You just help them along that path. So I think your job as a leader in a healthy sales culture is create collaborative goals, but that are stretched out a little bit. Not where you start, where you end. And even if you need to kind of push them a little bit further, because some people will hold on to that cocoon a little bit more than others, do it. And then they'll thank you for it. They'll be grateful because, you care. It's like, I want you to do more for you, not for me. Because once again, I'm hoping, stating the obvious, if I have an office full of people, if I have an area full of people, if I have a region full of people, if I've got an entire country full of people exceeding their goals, I know there's someone that's benefiting from that as well, which is me. Obviously, everyone's successful, everyone's happy, everyone gets whatever it turns them on. So do I.
Right.
So it's my job, I think, to do that. So part of that successful sales culture is when you set your goals, do it as a team, and then stretch it out a little bit. Number 2, and I alluded to this earlier with the Scooby Snacks, help them create the plan and the roadmap that will give them those results and yield them the success they're looking for. And from my point of view, once again, it's coming in and you need to sell a policy today. Coming in and having that end result as the initial goal in sales, you do a lot of losing. Losing doesn't feel good. We've covered that road a million times. I want you to feel good. I want you to be happy. I want you to feel like, yes, because then you're like, I can. Then you're confident, and then you do. So what's the beginning step in any sales process? In your sales process, anyone listening to this, what is the beginning? What is the first thing that needs to happen? What does that look like successfully? How many times a day can they do that? Because that's a lot of W's. That's a lot of wins. In my case, healthy conversations, successful conversations. The way we define it, I've learned something from you, and I've shared something. Once again, it's back and forth. We can always get to the interview about whatever it is I'm selling, and we can always get to the benefits, and we can always get to overcoming objections and all the stuff that everyone teaches on. No, let's get some W's. And if you can do that consistently, if I'm having 10 great conversations, once again, imagine if you, being who you are, unbelievable by the way, which I love, are having 10 amazing conversations every single day. How many policies are you going to write? A gazillion policies, right?
And especially in our industry, because it's still just relationships.
Yes.
Insurance has never been more relationship based, even in this market that has been so tough and so wild, right? And especially with what we've gone through in Florida with how many carriers leaving the state, right? And the rewrites and all of that stuff. It's still just relationships. It's still people are forced to have insurance. Why not do it with someone they like?
Yeah. 100
and someone that respects them, and someone that treats them well, and someone that asks about their children and their family and that cruise they went on. I feel like even more now than ever, because we're so digital and so disconnected in person,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That this is exactly what you're saying is ultimately the most important.
It makes a difference.
It's absolutely, it makes a difference. And it's funny because we spent a lot of time together, which we're going to get on that, working together in our local association, but I've never had this conversation this deep with you. And it's fascinating. You have a gift of making stuff easy.
I try.
You and I know because you don't like complicated. So I know you want easy, which is great.
Yes.
Because I mean, the buy-in is natural because most people want the path of least resistance.
Yes.
So if you're setting up a goal that, we start here with our success is having 10 really good, deep conversations, right? Like, who can't do that?
Well, getting back to firing quickly, perfect example.
The person that can't do that.
Person that can't connect and
Right.
can't have those conversations, that's wonderful. You know what? They're probably more suited for a servicing role,
Right.
for an underwriting role, something where they don't need to do that because they don't like sales. Great. We'll find something for you and you'll find success and you'll be happy, which
Sure.
is the key.
Right.
But yes, I listen, it all starts with that.
I think that just listening to you talk about this, it's again, because people get into business for so many different reasons, right? And some of them get into business with the passion about what they do without knowing this piece. But really, if you just break it down into small pieces, and it's ultimately just that, it's focusing on quality of life of your team,
Yes.
right?
100%.
Like, you want your team to come to work. You want to spend time with happy people. We spend the most time at work, right? More than our families,
Yes.
right? More than at home.
Absolutely.
I do. Absolutely. I am glued to that chair. So like, I do more things related about work, obviously, than most.
Yeah.
And I want to be around people that want to be here.
Yeah.
So in your style of leadership, which I've picked up on it again because we work together. And so it's funny because on maybe about 2 episodes ago, I spoke to, her name was Lisa Rigoli, and she does HR leadership for healthcare mainly. And I told her about you. And we were talking about how when we were on the board, the first question or the first exercise that we did was that like little icebreaker thing. But the last question on it was, what's your style of communication? Yeah. And I remember that so many people that had worked together for so many years, right? That knew each other, but never really asked each other, right? So those connections are made based off assumptions of each other and the assumptions on the interactions with each other. And you walked in, I should have known that was your style because you did it day one. You did it with us. And it was, what is your communication style, or what is your preferred method of communication, right? Right off the bat, you realized, well, the majority of us like direct communication, so this is going to be a good year. And it was a great year.
Yep.
It was. So talk to us about that. Like, do you do that internally? I'm sure your team has already been with you for so long, but like when you bring in new people, like, do you do those exercises again? Do you do any like personality testing, or is it just gut feelings off the team?
You know, that's a really good question. And I do think, by the way, and not that I utilize them, and I did more in my corporate role in the past, that those assessments, there are truths there. And there are unbelievable things that, like, I remember, when they would do them about me, we're like, oh my God, how'd you know?
It's so invasive sometimes. You're like, oh God.
It's like, oh, you just met me, really. And with me, and as you've mentioned, simple equals happy. So I keep it simple.
I love that.
What do I like?
Right.
And at this point, like, I'm 53, so I already know what I like and what I don't like. And if I don't want to have a beer with you, if I don't want to sit down and have dinner with you, and if I don't want to hang out with you, God knows I'm not going to want to work with you.
Right.
And that gets back to, once again, interviewing for the trades.
And some of those people also.
I wish I had a more sophisticated answer, but I don't.
It is sophisticated in a way because it's some of those tests also people know how to take them.
Yeah.
But you can't fake the exercise of having so many people spend time.
Yeah, and in particular, as you do develop your culture, whatever it is, and as you do develop your team, and as you do develop what your flavor is, everyone has bought in. So then it's really easy from my perspective when you bring someone new, a new element kind of into the salad, and does it taste right?
Right.
And you'll know if it tastes right, and if it doesn't taste right. And then also, as you're doing this and as you're creating this this sales culture and this team, and you care, which I do deeply about all my people, and they know this. Like I don't need to say it to them. I don't, and we're talking about it, which is why I mention it. If not, I wouldn't even mention it. I sincerely care. I spend, and this is on my kids, the God's honest truth. I spend more time worrying about their well-being than mine. Mm-hmm. It's a fact. I just do. I'll sit in bed and I'll think about all the different things that I need to do to make sure they're okay, and that they can be successful, and that they can make and live the lifestyle that they want to lead, and they can achieve their goals. Ultimately understanding that if I focus my energies and time on that, I'll be okay as well. And I think a lot of times when someone is trying to create a sales culture, they have that inversed. Mm-hmm. What do I got to do for me? What's going to be good for me? And me.
It's so poetic, all of this, because your motivation is to be number one.
Yeah.
But you're number one through other people.
Oh, always. Yeah. I've always tried to find people that are, smarter, better, faster, quicker than me. When once again, back in the corporate days, I used to have more people promoted than anybody because I knew it was my job to help them.
To lift them
and help them live their dreams, whatever their dreams were. And if I got promoted, immediately, whatever positions opened up, my people were getting promoted because I didn't get there because of me.
Right.
I got there because of them. And I've never lost sight of that. And I believe that to my core. And, having played team sports my whole life, 53-year-old old man, and I still play sports. I like that. I like that sense of us. There's no me. There's us. And I know that if us are doing amazing, me's going to be all right.
Right.
And if us are not, vice versa.
Right. So then so let's assume, you're having, like business has, right, the bad month on the goal side, on the sales side, right?
Absolutely.
Which is what we're still here to do, right? How do you handle that in a positive fashion?
Great question.
When you do have it, when it is upside down and maybe, I know you're not walking around 100% positive all the time. You have to be having tough conversations.
Absolutely.
Right? So how do you do that in that way?
Yeah. I think a part of the way that I manage results is never day to day, week to week, not even month to month, because once again, there's volatility and variability, right. and it can't tell you the story. Getting back to sports, and I apologize for anyone that doesn't like sports, but a team can win the Super Bowl and lose 4 games. Mm-hmm. So there's 12 months in the year. Mm-hmm. If I have 9 great months and 3 terrible months, I'm 9-3. It's a great year. What am I talking about? And I think a lot of sales managers will lose sight of it, and they have one bad month, and we suck, and oh my God. Right. No. So we manage quarter to quarter because I think quarters show you trends.
Okay.
And a saying in our office is, the numbers don't lie because they can't talk. So when I see a trend, which is upticking, downticking, double downticking, double upticking, your new high is better than your previous high. Your new low is worse than your previous low. Okay, we're going to have a conversation and find out, all right, what's going on here? You know what? And that conversation always starts with, what do you need from me? Mm-hmm. That's the beginning of it, because once again, 1, 2, 3, like we talked about. Mm-hmm. If there's something they need from me and that's why they're not achieving results, then it's my responsibility to get them that. If their answer is, hey, man, I need nothing from you, then it's okay. What's going on?
Right.
What are you doing? What are you not doing? What needs to change? What's your plan? Whatever it is to get to the, hey, you've got a double down tick. So I highly recommend, when looking at results and having the tough conversations, when you're having a difficult month, whatever it may be, look at the big picture.
Right.
Look at the big picture, because both of these things lead to happy or unhappy people. Mm-hmm. If you have a bad month after 9 consecutive amazing months, and I hammer you, and I know so many sales managers that do this, which is insane to me, and I hammer you, you're going to think immediately like, dude, like, I just crushed it for 9 months. I'm having an off month. Like, you know what? Leave me alone.
Right.
And now,
and then he comes into work the next day
unmotivated,
right. Irritated.
There's discord, irritated,
talking.
He's
telling everyone. Or she is. Yeah.
No. So that's not the case. The case is, hey man, you know what? I like to challenge my people. It's like, hey, we're having a terrible month. All right, I'm going to challenge you to kind of face yourself and figure out why and what are we going to do about it and what do you need? Absolutely. I don't accept nor like terrible months.
Sure.
Obviously.
Right.
But I don't hammer people, because that doesn't help anyone.
Right.
I don't come down on people. I don't micromanage people. I don't do any of those things. I manage quarter to quarter. We look for the trends. And then another part of a successful sales culture that you manage year over year over year over year, there's only one direction, which is up. And I don't accept any other answer. That is one of my hard lines is year one, you're learning, you're growing, you did 6 and you averaged 6. That's amazing. We're going to celebrate that because I want you to feel good. Now, let's be clear. Year 2, you're doing 10. Mm-hmm. What do you need from me? What are the everything, very simple construct. But year 2, we're doing 10. And then you're going to do 10 year 2 inevitably if you're the right person, right? Great. Year 3, we're doing 14. Mm-hmm. And year 4, we're doing 20. Until it gets to the point, and this is the question that I challenge my people with all the time because I challenge myself with this question all the time. And that's another important part as far as I'm concerned of what I think is a successful sales culture is I don't put anything on them that I don't put on myself. So my question is someone out there doing it? Yes. Okay, so what are we talking about?
Right.
Right. That's it. There's nothing left to talk about. Nothing left to talk about. Nothing left to talk about. Is someone out there doing X? Yes, as a matter of fact, I guarantee there's a lot of people doing X. Okay, so then why can't we? Why can't you? Why can't I? Unless you're the one person. If you're the Michael Jordan,
right,
then good for you, man. You're Michael Jordan.
Right.
I'm not going to say anything to you, most likely. I'm just going to hug you and tell you how much I love you. But most people are not Michael Jordan.
Sure.
So I think that's another part of a successful sales culture is long-term vision and long-term inspection of, hey, where are we? And next year, that number has to be better. What
KPIs do you track?
That's another, no one's going to like this answer.
I think I will because I'm tracking weekly calls, mailers, activities.
Good.
I don't track behaviors. I track activities because that dictates behaviors, right? If we're doing the right activities, the behaviors are there.
Yeah.
Right? Or the results are there. No, my bad. So the activities and the behaviors, the results would come. So weekly, we talk about it. We track it. We see. That's how I can tell you that we got that one deal with the restaurant after 16 drops. Like that's motivating because then, that could have been beginner's luck again, but still, like we already know the science. A lot of sales is a numbers game.
100%.
So it's also knowing where the efforts are.
Yes.
With our prospecting, with this data, we were able to know, okay, we called these numbers for a quarter. Let's move on to another industry maybe,
Absolutely.
Right? Those types of things. So what, if any?
So yeah, that is a definitive limitation of my style, you know what, and the way that I manage and the way that I've consistently managed and something that does not come natural to me. And by saying
it's not
that,
simple.
No, yeah, maybe. But I it's one of the areas that I know I've always needed to maybe spend more time on. But then that leads to, it makes me unhappy. And
I love that.
It's taken me,
dude, I love it.
It's taken me so many years.
It's so good though.
To get to the point where like, does it make me happy? Yeah. And if it doesn't, I'm not doing it.
And look, the bigger matrix, the bigger statistics are there, right? You're tracking it. That the growth is there, up and up. All that's, that stuff is happening.
Yes.
It's just, if it wasn't happening, then maybe you would have to implement some of these things. But obviously your style is working.
So here's my answer to that. No, it just means I have the wrong people. My style, my way. If we are not growing, if we are not doing more, if we're not advancing, if we're not, everything that I've described, I've got the wrong people. Mm-hmm. And why do I have the wrong people? Because I didn't do a good job of interviewing. I didn't do a good job of really analyzing, back to the beginning, what's important to me, what's important for the role. In that order, by the way. Mm-hmm. And now I have a bunch of people in here, kind of like my first staff, that they didn't care about growth. They didn't care about the customer. They didn't care about much. They just, but they knew a lot. That's my problem. Because if that isn't my problem, that means now I need to come and start micromanaging you, which I refuse to do because I think that's the most demotivating thing on the planet.
And I think KPIs are a way of doing that. It is.
They are, even like I said, I believe in them. So I don't want anyone to mistake the notion that a KPI is something negative. It's not. No. It's very useful, very, very helpful. In certain KPIs will tell you the story and tell you what you need to do. But in a very tiny vacuum of kind of what we're discussing here is if I now need to start standing over you every day to see, did you make 25 phone calls today? I'm miserable. Mm-hmm. You're miserable. Game over. Mm-hmm. Game over. That's it. That, I can tell you 100%, never leads to the turnaround story of a lifetime. All of a sudden, we're doing great because this guy's standing over me, hammering me. Right. No, it doesn't lead to that. It does not lead to that. It leads to short-term compliance. You might squeeze one good month out of them, and you're right back where you started. Yeah. And like I said, not the keeper of the truth, just the way that I have found in my...
And it's worked, obviously.
Thank God.
Yeah. Question. Mm-hmm. What do you think makes a good leader?
I think there's many things. The baseline is if you care or not about your people, mm-hmm. about your clients, about your company partners, about your company. Mm-hmm. You know what? Do you care about all these external things that aren't, I care about me? You know what? So maybe a different way, and I don't want to say that you're selfish, but I think a lot of leaders, unfortunately, put themselves at the top of that decision-making process, and ultimately it breaks down because it's very transparent and it's very clear. What I have found of a great leader is, one, they care. I think number two is they have a 20,000-foot view of what the end game looks like. And maybe they're not the greatest in the weeds, but then they're going to go find the people, mm-hmm. and they're going to identify the people that are unbelievably intelligent, smart, hardworking, driven, just amazing people that you want to be around with for the rest of your life, and they're going to make them a part of it. And then three is they share the success. Mm. You know what? I once again, very blessed where in one of the companies I worked with for many years, the owner, the CEO, were so unbelievably generous. You know, the more they succeeded and the more they made, the more they wanted you to succeed and make. And I've seen leaders where it's like, hey man, if there's $10 coming in, I want $9.99.
That Amazon gift card that you get, it's mine.
And I'll give you a penny.
Yeah.
And they think, oh my God, I just gave them a penny. Look how generous I am. No, dude, you're not. Mm-hmm. You know what? It's sharing in that success. You know, sharing in whatever comes in is ours. Needless to say, a larger portion should be yours because you're taking the risk of opening a business. Clearly.
Well, and you're the one driving the ship.
All that stuff. Mm-hmm. But you share. Mm-hmm. You know, so caring and sharing, having a vision, and then putting your ego aside, and listening to people on your team and making sure you're hiring the right people. I think you put those things together, and typically you stand a great chance of success because most folks will see that. And then you have commitment. And every company, I don't care what the industry is, I don't care, big, small, or in between, your most valuable asset is your people. Mm-hmm. The most valuable asset you have are your people. So if you treat them, another thing, you know, that pops into my head that I think is imperatively important. So, you know, I use cars in a garage as an analogy. I've seen many leaders and sales leaders in particular. So they'll have their garage with 10 cars. They have a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, a couple BMWs, and then, you know, a lot of, you know, 1972 whatevers. They'll spend their entire time with the 1972 whatevers trying to get them to not break down. And I'm sorry to tell you, you can spend every minute of your life with that 1972 whatever. It's never going to outperform the BMW or the Ferrari or the Lamborghini. And if you were to spend that time with these cars, you would get so much further. So what happens is they'll have that top performer or performers, and they'll ignore them. They're fine.
Right.
They're good on their own. I don't need to pay them any attention. And how's that interpreted by the employee? He doesn't care about it. Doesn't care.
And also, I feel like a lot of people that perceive that those employees are doing well, that they don't want any like attention or one-on-one or coaching or things like that. It's not true.
No.
In fact, I think top performers want the mentorship.
Of course.
Because they want to grow more.
Yes, and they want the check-in. But all of those things are centered around what? Hey, man, there's a human being here that cares about me. I'm going to say everyone, but I'm guessing most people like to be cared about. Mm-hmm. Most people like to have someone that appreciates them. So our top performers, If you don't care about them and you don't appreciate them, then let me help you out here. Someone else will. And the non-top performer, I'm not saying to ignore them, obviously.
No, you develop them.
You develop them, you spend time, and you care equally, but everyone gets some love. Everyone gets time. Everyone gets attention. And you'll get a lot further with that, creating a successful sales culture. And meritocracy, I think the top deserves more. You do an incentive trip. And these are like silly little examples. You do a contest in your office. Hey, we're giving away $5,000. Wonderful. How do you guys want to do this, right? So we do, I think everyone should get, equal pieces. No, not happening. Because, the person, she did 80% of it. She deserves 80% of the pot. Or she deserves the entire damn thing. Or we're going to do it, first, second, and third, whatever it may be. But I think if you are at the top of your game, you've earned those rewards because you've put in the time, the effort, to learn, to grow, to develop, whatever it is that got you there.
It's also in that vein of giving people opportunity to rise.
Yeah.
Right. So when they see someone at the top and they
motivating.
They say, okay, well, that person was where I was too.
Yes.
They've been where I've been and they've gotten there. So how? Right. And we could have a whole nother hour on like mentorship and stuff like that, right? Because that's where that stuff comes in. Mentorship isn't only from you in your organization or just in any aspect, right? But even those top performers can bring in and help and offer that mentorship to help people rise, right? We've all been helped, and I'm a strong believer of turning around and lending the hand.
Yes.
To pull someone else up. Yeah.
The more you give, the more you get.
100%.
The more you give, the more you get.
In everything. 100%. 100%. I could talk to you for hours. I can't believe this much time has passed. I literally could talk to you for hours. I had the pleasure of working with you in our Latin Agents Association. And I remember you sat me down and you said, be on my board. And I said, no. And then,
I remember.
And then you worked your magic. You did what you did. That is your gift.
Oh.
Inspiring people. No, it is.
I don't like to be complimented like that.
It is a
I get
gift. No, it is a gift.
Thank you.
It should be shared, and more people need more Mariano because there's a lot of people that need it, right? That need someone to believe in them. And you literally said to me, well, I need you. I can't do it without you, and I won't do it without you. Yeah. You threatened me a little bit. A little bit. There's a little bit of that. You still did it with a smile. But, you got my buy-in relatively quick because I think that is your gift, leadership and inspiring and the vision that you have. You're very good at that. And so thank you for forcing me, convincing me to I didn't comply. I committed to you, and we had a great year, and you made a lot of changes in that organization that needed to be done, right? Moving locations, which is always challenging in any organization. When you're in a place for so long, people get so used to it. So you were able to break years. There you go. You're so good at it. It's just so natural. No, it really is inspiring to be around you. I love being around you, and I'm not around you enough. So we need to change that.
It's mutual.
Thank you. But how do you get people? For someone that doesn't feel they're inspiring, maybe doesn't know that they are, right? How do you get people to buy into your vision?
That's a really good question. And I hate that my answers are all the same, but I remember that conversation with you. And I remember what prompted that conversation is, at one of the meetings, when I was approached by being president, they're like, hey, you should take over next year. And I was like, well, I'm not sure. And you sat me down and you literally laid out, here's what's, A, B, C, and D, and here's what it should be. And you had all these amazing ideas that I was like, all right, if I can get someone like this to help and to be a part of this, we can be successful. And I meant it. Like, if you weren't going to be down, it's like, I'm not, I'm not down. And so what I'm driving to, and for anyone, is just be sincere.
Right.
What I said to you and when I spoke to you, and this also includes, and it's really important to mention this, even when you give someone negative feedback, it comes from a place of love. Because I want you to be better, not because I'm trying to crush you. It's the opposite. Right. So I think that showing that sincerity and that you sincerely care about them. And then, you know, like we did as a group, and that entire year where our first meeting, it's like, hey, we're going to take risks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you guys down with this? Yes. All right. We're going to do a lot of things differently. It's like, are you guys down with this? Yes. We may fall flat on our faces. This may fail miserably, but at least we'll know. Are you guys down with this? And everyone's like, yes. So collectively, that group of people we put together made it happen. And it was a transformative year. And it was an amazing year. But I think what I would emphasize to anybody and everybody is, you know, as long as you know your true self and what you're looking for, and you're honest and sincere, you have done what you control.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I control. I control that, nothing else. Whether you eventually said no to me or not, I didn't control that, and I didn't worry about that. I just wanted to tell you, hey, man, here's how I feel. It's from the heart. It's sincere. I think we can do some amazing things together, and you know, and you're amazing, and I know you're amazing, and the things that you accomplish and what you're doing and what you're building and your ideas and your energy and your passion, so many things that drew me to you and still do, and why I like hanging out with you and why we have fun. But that was a part of it. So, you know, and I give long answers to short questions. Sincerity. People see through BS, and people see if you're faking it, and people see if you're just trying to use them, and people see if they're just a pawn, and you know, all the other things. No, because why? I don't like to be any of those things.
Right. And
I don't want to be used, and I don't want to be a pawn, and I want to be cared about, and I want to work with someone that sincerely cares about me, so I care deeply. And I think the key is that you just got to care, and you got to be sincere. And when you are, more often than not, you'll find the right people, you'll find success. And along the way, without a doubt, there will be times when you're heartbroken. Mm-hmm. And then once again,
with big wins come big losses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do the balance. Okay,
mm-hmm.
I can be the type of leader that I never put myself out there. So that means I'm never going to be heartbroken, but I'm never going to achieve amazing things ever. Or I can be the kind of leader, it's like, hey, listen, man, you know what? I am going to put it all out there, and it is going to be what it is. And I am going to run into people that lie, cheat, steal, are insincere, that take advantage of me, that do all kinds of things. Once I learn that, they're cut out of my life. Wonderful. And it hurts terribly. But that's one out of 20 interactions. So you do the balance. Like, yeah, I'll take the 19 positive interactions. You know, like I said, with the group of people I have in my office. Perfect example. I mean, it's like a family at this point. Literally, it's like a family in there. Everyone cares about each other. Everyone knows everyone's like family stuff. And then the business and the success and the celebrations and everything comes along. Why? Because we all care. So I think that sincerity.
I think I couldn't agree with you more. And I love the fact that your answers all go back to one principle, because honestly, everything is so overcomplicated today, right? Everything is so complex. When you've achieved your success off of one or two things, they're very simple, right? Simple. Keeping things simple and love and care for people, right? Which are so basic. Yeah. So it's like, who cares about everything else? It really comes down to these two things. So it's very refreshing to hear too, because sometimes you think you're doing so much wrong because you're not doing this, you're not doing this process, you're not implementing this, but the foundation is these two things. That's it. And it's clearly worked. And I think that one of the things that about what you said that I heard was also with big vision, right? Absolutely. There is failure. Yes. So expect it. Yes. And be prepared for it because it's going to happen. Otherwise, then I don't know that it would be a vision or, you know, that you have.
If you're not failing along the way, you're not doing something right.
Right. Or big enough.
You're not dreaming. That better way of saying it. Thank you. You're not dreaming big enough.
Big enough. Right.
And that's a great moment of, you know, introspection and being like, all right, why am I limiting myself to X when is there someone else out there doing it? Right.
Well, it's so simple because what you do with your team, you do with yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Always.
You're telling them that, right? Yes. What's your why under the table? Are you operating from under the table with your own why?
That's how our current. So we've started now. You know, it's been about a year. Tuesday, Thursday, 15-minute training sessions every Tuesday, and it started with. So we had an off month, and I found myself saying, well, you know what? As long as we do X, it's like I'm okay. And I said that to myself out loud, and immediately I was like, whoa, where did that come from? It's like, I didn't like that about myself. So I started doing some work on myself. It's like, okay, you're, now we've named it the okay number, which is like, that number that everyone has. It's like, all right, I didn't achieve my goal, but okay.
Right.
So my okay number was X, and I was there, and I was sitting with myself. It's like, okay, no, like there's something that here you need to do some work on yourself. And I began that process, which is number one, are my motivations above or below? Great. Number two, do I have limiting beliefs? Like, are there things that right now I'm putting in my head that are keeping me from achieving more? And that is not, and this is the key point that I made to my group, and that's where we are right now in the training, by the way, as I went through it myself. And I told them, hey, I did this for myself first before we did it together. That is not the destination. That's just a springboard too, because the next step is, okay, now I'm going to list all the reasons why I can. And you're going to see that list is a lot longer than your limiting beliefs.
And dude, working for you is like therapy, honestly.
A little bit.
Yeah, well, but the thing is that's you're making something of people. Like literally people go to therapy for this stuff, right? About that's like fun. Your limiting beliefs and like why do you maybe negative self-talk? Yes. Like why do you believe you can't do it? What about the imposter syndrome? All of those things. If you're tapping into this, I mean, it's more than working for you is not a job.
I honestly, I try to make it not be because I care about these people.
It's evident.
And a part of that, honestly, and it's having those, and I can see the look on their face as well, where I'm like, listen, this is going to teach you one of two things, whatever we happen to be working on. One, how to be vulnerable with yourself, which many people struggle with. And
right.
It's unbelievably important to be vulnerable with yourself and then others as you get comfortable with yourself. And two is your level of self-awareness. Mm-hmm. You know what? Where on a scale of 1 to 10, like how self-aware are you that like you think things are great when they're really not great, or vice versa? You think things are terrible when you're crushing it. So having them tap into those things really has them find a level of honesty with themselves that then allows them to grow and then to ultimately do more, which is what this is all about. We want to do more.
Yeah. And I mean, when people go to work, the majority of this country comes back a worse person, right? When they go home and they're dealing with their children or their spouses, right? But the goal here is the opposite, right? Let's make them better human beings to send them to be better husbands, wives, children.
Literally, and it's funny you say that. We talk about that.
Yeah.
It's like when I'm the best version of myself, I'm a better husband, I'm a better father, I'm a better friend, I'm a better teammate, I'm a better boss to you guys, I'm a better person to myself, I'm a better version to everyone when these things are going down. So that's 100% part of the plan, with the ultimate goal, of course, is to make sure we do more.
Of course. I have to introduce you to some people, some really good friends of mine that are in Orlando, Urban Young. And they are 3 partners. 2 of them are brothers. And then Rod, who's amazing. And they, in insurance, and their philosophy, you guys are so similar. You guys would thrive. They're big into sports. I mean, you guys have to meet because their whole philosophy is team first.
Yep.
And they are a self-development company that happens to sell insurance. And their entire goal is to make or help people that want to be better achieve their personal goals by way of selling insurance. You guys have to absolutely meet, and I want to be there because it's going to be the best introduction I've ever made, and I make amazing. A lot.
That's amazing.
This introduction is going to be epic. You guys have to meet. We have to because it's so similar, and it's. We were actually just in Key West for one of our masterminds, and they had some of their team, and they did a panel on their team culture and how every decision, it's team first. Mm-hmm. Every decision they make as a business is how does this affect the team and what we're trying to build.
Same.
So I love that. I would
learn a lot from that. That'd be amazing.
I have to, you guys have to absolutely meet. We got to take a trip to Orlando because you have to, you guys are going to love each other.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. I'm sure I'll learn a lot.
I love you so much. Thank you so much. I could literally talk to you forever. We have to do this. Maybe you'll be number 50. Oh. Maybe you'll be every 25. It's a check-in with Mariano. Okay. Maybe we'll just do a series of that. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Tell everyone where they can find you.
So Homeport Insurance Group, part of the Liberty Company brokers. We are in Pembroke Pines and service the entire United States. And my email address?
Yeah, or your website.
www.homeportins.com. Email address, mdemarin@libertycompany.com.
And he's on LinkedIn. You can find
And
him on
LinkedIn, Mariano Demarin.
Yeah. And I'll put that all in the show notes. Thank you so much.
You're the best.
You're the best.